Hello and welcome back to Footy with Freddie. We have a lot to cover today. So firstly I'm going to talk about the Norwich game and rate all the players individually. And then I'm going to make an all-time Manchester United 11. And then I'm going to make a little bit of a preview on the Brighton game, not too long. Just a few score predictions and my predicted lineup. So let's get cracking. The Norwich game, 2-1, it's a win. We're through to the semi-final of the FA Cup. You know, that's the most important thing. However, we did have to play 120 minutes. We have not given the rest to players like Pogba, Rashford and Martial. So, you can look at it in two ways. You can see it as a win, and now we're into the semi-final. But you can also see it as a poor performance because we weren't able to rest our better players for the game against Brighton, which was, I think, Ollie's idea, to play the weaker players and rest our stronger players that are going to play against Brighton, which he wasn't able to do because the weaker players messed up, really. So it's I wouldn't really blame Ollie because these players, that even the weaker players, he'd expect to beat Norwich because Norwich aren't a great side, and even against these weaker players, they were struggling to create chances. But I don't blame Ollie at all. I think some of the players that they need to go. You look at the likes of Lingard, Mata, Dalot. He didn't play well, but I think he needs to stay just in case Aaron Wan-Bissaka gets injured because that's a possibility. With anyone can get injured at any given time. So I think there's a lot to work on there. A lot that didn't go well, but the most important thing is that we did get the win and we are through to the semi-finals. I will go through every player's performance individually right now. So I'm gonna start off with Romero. Romero didn't really have much to do, and what he did have to do, he made a mistake of. As simple as that, really. He should have stopped it. I think his positioning wasn't right, because if he was positioned right, he would have got to that ball. There was no reason for him to be beaten at that range, and it wasn't hit. It wasn't like it was right into the top corner, an unstoppable shot like Rashford's free kick against Chelsea. It was low and in the corner. You really expected it. You would expect the goalkeeper of that class, that's been capped many times by his country, to be able to stop that. And I do rate Romero as a keeper. I think he's a very, very, very good backup keeper. However, he should have got his hands to that. I don't think his positioning was right. To be fair, to be honest, because if his position was right, he would have got to that ball. He shouldn't be beaten at his near post and from that range. So for me, he has to be given a 5 because he didn't really have to do much. Although the punch in the second half, because they whipped in across Norwich, and he ran out and punched it about 30 yards down the field. That was all right. So I'm not going to give him a 4. A 4 would be quite harsh. I'm going to give him a 5 because he didn't really have much to do, and he made a mistake with the goal. However, that was a good punch to clear the danger. So I'm going to give him a 5. Moving on to Eric Bailly now. I'm going to give him a 6 because he didn't make any mistakes, really, did he? But he didn't really do anything that spectacular. He looked comfortable on the ball. Obviously, if he kept the clean sheet, I probably would have given him a 7. He looked pretty solid. Comfortable on the ball. Not really much to say about Bailly, so I'm just going to move on to my man of the match, Harry Maguire, who was fantastic, defensively solid, got the winning goal. He also could have got the winning goal before that with the header, which Krul made a brilliant save. So I think he had an absolutely excellent performance. Obviously, great captain. He really, really, really had a great game. Possibly his best game in a Man United shirt. And ultimately, he's probably saved us from being knocked out of FA Cup, because I think if it had gone to penalties, I think Norwich would have won, because Krul is such a good penalty saver. I mean, you saw in the 3-1 win against Norwich last year, back in 2019, he made 2 penalty saves, even though we won 3-1. He made 1 save from Rashford and 1 save from Martial. So we know his capabilities. And we also saw it in the World Cup 2014 against Costa Rica, where we saw his brilliant penalty saving capabilities then, where he won the penalty shootout with Holland. So we know his capabilities, and I think if Maguire hadn't scored that goal, then we would have been out of the FA Cup, which is a big shame, because I think we have a good chance of winning it. However, I mean, City are still in, but I still think we have a good chance of winning the FA Cup, because we're in good form. I think we've got a very good side, and I think we have a good chance of winning it. So it would have been a real shame if we'd been knocked out to Norwich. So anyway, I'm going to give Maguire a 9, my man of the match. So Dalot didn't really do much. In fact, he had a pretty good first half. He took his eye off the ball on one occasion. I was going to give him a 5, but I think that's a little bit harsh, in fact, because he was okay. He didn't really do much wrong. I mean, he's brought off a little bit early, but I'm going to give him a 6. I'm going to bump him up because I was going to give him a 5 originally, but he did make a few good runs down that flank. Kept a clean sheet while he was on, I think. Yeah, he was brought off before they scored, so he kept a clean sheet. He was defensively pretty solid. Got up and down the flank pretty well. Apart from that one ball that he took his eye off, I think he was all right. So played simple passes. So yeah, 6, average performance. Now moving on to the left back, who is fantastic, and he's playing fantastic at the moment, Luke Shaw. And we're giving him an 8 because of the attacking, his drive into the attack, like the tempo that he was bringing to Man United yesterday was fantastic. Like, he was the one-touch football, the two-touch football, the drive forward. I thought at times it was too slow. That's why I was struggling to break down Norwich. What we had to do is quicken the tempo, and I think Shaw was one of the players that was doing that. He was trying to quicken the tempo. He was getting up the field. And then we also saw him track back very quickly because Timo Pukki was through on goal, and he just tracked back like a rocket, and he managed to save us from going 1-0 down the first half. So I think Luke Shaw had a very good game, and had Harry Maguire not scored that goal, I think I would have been giving Luke Shaw man of the match, really, because he's been brilliant since the restart, and he was brilliant again against Norwich on Saturday. So I'm giving him an 8. Very, very, very good performance. Moving on to McTominey, and he's not been the same since the restart. There's something about it. He had that absolute wonder goal against City, but since then, he's not really done much. He doesn't seem to have that same dominance in the midfield. Like, his physicality is his strength. Like, how he dominates the midfield, that's his strength. But he didn't seem to have that. So I'm going to give him a 5 because I think he was really poor against Norwich on Saturday. He didn't really do much. He's brought off. Really not a great performance. Moving on to Fred. I'm giving Fred a 7. Really good performance. Broke up the game really well. Always doesn't offer that much attacking wise, but he kept the ball well. I can't remember him losing the ball once. Defensively solid as always. Obviously, I don't blame him for the goal that we conceded. He had a very good performance. I'll give him a 7. Bruno Fernandes. I love Bruno Fernandes. I think he's fantastic. I think he's world class, and I think he's one of the best players at Manchester United, if not the best. However, that performance wasn't good enough. This is probably the worst I've ever seen him play for Man United. He was giving the ball away far, far, far too much. And I get that he's the creative player in the team and he needs to take the risks, because when the risks work, then we get the results. And the problem was before is we didn't have the players taking the risks. However, we don't always want to be throwing the ball away, especially in games like that, because when you have possession, it's as simple as you can score. If you have possession, you can score. If you don't have possession, you can't score. So if you keep on losing the ball, then it's making it harder for you to score. However, what I do like about Bruno Fernandes is he's not afraid to take the risks, and when there's an end product, I don't mind him doing it. But not yesterday, it was Saturday, wasn't it? There was no end product. So, really poor performance, and I'm going to give him a 4, I think. 4 or a 5. Nah, I'll stick with a 4. I think I'm giving him a 4, yeah. So, yeah, because he really didn't have a great game. He was really poor for him. Really, really poor. Then we'll move on to Lingard, who I'm also going to give a 4. Lingard isn't good enough at the moment. I'm not saying he can't be good enough, because if they can replicate the form he got about 2 seasons ago, he's not. I think he's a little bit underrated in that. I think fans have short memories, and if you go back 2 seasons ago, he was on fire. I remember one game against Burnley, we were 2-0 down, and at halftime we brought Lingard on, and he completely changed the game. Yes, it's the same Lingard. It's the same Lingard as we saw on Saturday against Norwich. It's that same Lingard. He's in there somewhere, and he scored 2 goals and made it 2-2 in that second half. So if we can replicate, it's like with David De Gea, if we can replicate the form that he had 2 seasons ago, we've still got an okay player. If we can replicate that form from Lingard, I don't think we necessarily have to get rid of him, because I think he could still be a squad player. However, if we can't replicate that form, then he's got to go, because his performances at the moment aren't good enough. However, I think we are being a little bit harsh on him. I think he's having a tough spell. I think we probably need to get behind him and help him get back into form, because he's an okay squad player. I don't mind him and Dan James and Dalot and those guys being a squad player. And I do prefer Lingard to Pereira. And I think if we can get him back into form, he's a good squad player. Obviously, he's not going to start, and I do not want him to start at all. That's not what I'm saying. But I think if we can get him back into the form he was in 2 years ago, I think he's an okay squad player. Because do remember, he was in the England national team, and he scored an absolute worldie in that 6-1 win against Panama, and he played very well in that World Cup. So we shouldn't forget that, because fans have very short memories. Lingard, not too long ago, was one of our better players, and we shouldn't forget that. So, but he was very poor, so I'm going to give him a 4, because it was a really poor performance from him. Moving on to Mata, who I think was the worst on the field. I'm also going to give him a 4. I think a 3 would be very harsh to give anyone, because at the end of the day we won the match, but he was just too slow. He's far too slow. Up against the Norwich left back, sorry, I don't remember his name. But Norwich left back's very fast, and it was just not a good matchup, because Mata, being a brilliant servant for the club for countless years, but I think it's time for him to move on. Maybe take a move to La Liga, where the tempo's a little bit slower. But I think he's done at Man United now. Been brilliant for us over the past years that he's been at the club. But I think it really is time for him to move on, because he's not fast enough in his legs. He's fast in his head, and he thinks the game well. That's what I like about Matt. He's a very smart player, but he has to move on now, I think. So, last player in the starting lineup is Ighalo, who I'm giving a 7. He's a goal scorer, Ighalo. Simple as. Strong goal scorer. He did everything. He had a solid performance. He held the ball up well. He scored his goal. You can't really criticise what he did. He basically got it to extra time. If he hadn't scored that goal, Norwich would have gone through. Simple as. I mean, he was crucial in that game. He scored the goal. He scored the goal in normal time. He held up the play. So I think a 7 is a fair score for him. and the score that he deserves. So, not really much to say about Ighalo. He did his job, so I give him a 7. And now moving on to the subs. So, I'm going to talk about... I'm only going to go over these briefly. So, Pogba, I'm going to give him a 7. Matic, a 6. Rashford, a 7. Williams, a 7. Greenwood, a 6. And Martial, a 6. They all played pretty well. They all made quite a big difference when they were brought onto the field. Some more than others. I think that all the subs did pretty well. Martial didn't really have enough time to impact, but when he was on, he looked pretty good. Like, he nowhere near as good as he did against Sheffield, but he looked pretty good. So, yeah. Now, moving on swiftly to my Man United all-time 11. Now, I'm just going to say the names of the players, and I'll just give a little bit of an explanation why. I think my goalkeeper, obviously, I think nobody can argue here, is Peter Schmeichel. No, I do. Kasper is a very good keeper, but Peter was much better. And Kasper's obviously not played for United. But Peter Schmeichel, what a keeper. Probably the best keeper in history. Up with, arguably it's Yashin, but I think he probably is the best keeper in history. Schmeichel, what a keeper. You can't really argue with it. He just is. He's the best. He's the best keeper Man United have had. So he's my keeper. My right back is Gary Neville. I don't think there's any arguing there either. He was nothing special, but he always did his job. He always put a shift in. Completely deserves a place in this team because he was just a great team player. He's nothing special. He didn't have unbelievable natural gifts with the ball. He was just a very hard-working guy on the pitch, and I think just contributed a lot to the team. So, moving on to my centre-backs. This is a very tough one, but I'm going with Ferdinand and Duncan Edwards. So, Ferdinand, I don't think you can really argue with this because he was brilliant for United. He won countless titles with them, won the Champions League, won pretty much there is to win in football with United. What an absolute brilliant player he was for us. Such a solid centre-back. He was fast, strong, brilliant defender. You have to have him in your team. No debating there. My next one is Duncan Edwards. And I don't think many of you will know who Duncan Edwards was, but it was quite tragic with him because United had a plane crash, which I'm sure all of you know, and many of their players died on that crash. One of them being Duncan Edwards, and he was an absolutely fantastic centre back. He was dubbed to be one of the best in the world, if not the best in the world at the time. He was back in quite a long time ago now, I think 60s we're looking at, but he died at the age of 21 in the plane crash for Sir Matt Busby's team. But he's a brilliant player. He was just an absolute beast. My grandfather, in fact, told me about him and how great a player he was. At centre-back, he was just an absolute monster, apparently. So he has to be in my team. And I know a lot of you will be saying Vidic, but I think it's good to have players from different eras, and Edwards is one of the best from previous eras, as my granddad has told me how good a centre-back he was. So yeah, my left-back, I'm going with Patrice Evra. I always liked him as a kid. Really, really good left-back. Offered a lot in the defence and offence. Just a very, very good player. Technically, defensively, just he has to be in the team. Very, very good left-back. So what we're going to do now, midfield. This is a tough one. I think, okay, obviously the first one I'm going to go with is Paul Scholes. Genius. Absolute genius, this guy. one of the best midfielders of all time, in my opinion. The best English midfielder of all time. Many of you will say Gerrard, Lampard. This guy was a genius. It was just what was going up here. What was going on up here, because it was just the way he thought the game, his vision, his passing range, his volleys. He was just absolutely class. Paul Scholes is probably one of the best players Man United have ever had, and you can't not have him in your team. So yeah, Scholes has got to be in it. Yeah, no arguing with that. And if anyone does argue, then I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on, because Scholes is just an absolute class player, and surely has to be in the Man United all-time 11. Next to him in midfield, we'll have Roy Keane. So, great leader, great character. Sorry, just technical difficulties here. I'll be back in a second. Yeah, alright, I'm back. Yeah, I was talking about Roy Keane there. So, what a player. Great character. What a leader. On and off the field. He didn't accept any slackers in the team. Really great leader. It was his heart, really. And he was a great player as well. It wasn't just his... I know he's a little bit of a psychopath at times, but he was just an absolute leader. Dominant. He said if people weren't pulling their weight, he would tell them. And I think he has to be in the team just because of that. And he was a great player on top of that. Just a great midfielder. So he has to be in the team. And as my number 10, as like my central attacking midfielder, I'm having Wayne Rooney. All-time Man United top scorer, so he kind of has to be in the team. Brilliant player. I watched him growing up, and he's a special player, Wayne Rooney. I think he's very underrated, Rooney. He's class. He just scores goals and goals and goals. And he just kept on scoring, and also his vision as well, brilliant. When he's moved back into a more midfield role, he's been brilliant as well there. So yeah, Rooney has to be in that team, because the pure goals that he scored and just everything about Rooney, he was just a really good player. Obviously, he's still playing with Derby County, and he has to be in the team because he's just a fantastic footballer. Great vision, scores goals, can shoot from anywhere, inside, outside the box, left foot, right foot. Brilliant player. So moving on to my front three. Now this one was a tough one because Ryan Giggs is my idol, but you can't not have George Best and Cristiano Ronaldo in your team, because both of them are they're up there with the greatest players of all time. They're not the greatest players of all time because of the likes of Messi, Pele, Maradona, Cruyff. They're up there with Cruyff, to be fair. Cruyff is obviously an absolute genius on and off the field, but I think they're probably up there with Cruyff in terms of playing. So obviously on the left-hand side, I'm putting Best. And this one's such a tough one because Giggs is such a great player for United. That just unbelievable. The consistency and how he used to rip up defences, the speed that he has. And he was just brilliant. That goal against Arsenal that in the FA Cup was fantastic. The way he just ripped up the defence, just ran through them all. Fantastic. But George Best, he's possibly the most naturally gifted footballer in history. His technical ability and his ability just to glide past footballers is just... I don't think it's ever been seen again, other than possibly Maradona and Messi. He was just sensational. I think Pele said that he was the greatest player he'd ever played against. And Pele had played against a lot of fantastic footballers. And he said George Best was the best he'd ever played against. And that is really saying something. George Best, off the field, he made some mistakes. And we all know that. But what a player George Best was. And he has to be in the team just because of his ability. He is just a fantastic footballer, so naturally gifted. Just the way he beat players. And if you've not seen any of George Best, check him out on YouTube. You can see him on YouTube. Just search up George Best. You will see how gifted this man was. And many of you have seen his card on FIFA. Honestly, I think he should be way higher rated than what he is on FIFA, because he's sensational. His dribbling ability, I don't think it's ever been seen again, other than Maradona and Messi. But he's fantastic. He has to be in the team. On the right, we have Cristiano Ronaldo. Probably, he's not as good as Messi. But what a player. What an athlete. He's just sensational. He's brilliant in the air. He has a brilliant shot. He's fast. He's skillful. He's like the perfect footballer. But he's not got... Messi is special. A lot of people will say Ronaldo is the best player in the world, but Messi's the best player in the universe. I think Messi's just out of this world. But Ronaldo, what a player. I don't know if we'll ever see a player like Ronaldo ever again. I mean, he's a special player. I just remember watching that 3-3 game against Spain, and that was ridiculous. Portugal and Spain in the World Cup, and he was absolutely sensational. He basically carried Portugal in that game. That free kick at the end, under pressure, and just delivering like that, sensational. And all the Ballon d'Ors he's won, I've lost count now. I think it's 5, but he has to be in the team. And I think to be fair, I think he was best at Man United. I mean, I know he got criticised in his first few years because he was very skillful and not passing the ball enough and doing too much. But this player's class. I mean, if you disagree with me, go check his goals. Go check his assists. Go check his goals per game. Go check his trophy cabinet. I mean, you can't argue with his stats. Cristiano Ronaldo has to be in that team purely because of the goals he scored, and also just because of how good a player he is. He's just absolutely sensational. Now, last player in the team. Many of you may not have heard of this guy, but he's in him and George Best and Dennis Law are outside. They have a statue outside Old Trafford. So if you've been to Old Trafford, you will know him. And his name is Bobby Charlton, and he still goes to the Man United games. Well, he was going before the restart. Obviously now no one's allowed in the stadium, but yeah, Bobby Charlton has to be in there because before Rooney, he was the record goal scorer, and his record stood for so many years. And he was just a great goal scorer. He won the World Cup with England. One of very few people that can say that they won the World Cup with England. I mean, there are very, very, very few people that can say that, and Bobby Charlton's one of them. So Bobby Charlton earns the final place in my all-time 11. I know there have been a lot of really great players being missed out here. I'll go through some of the great ones now. Some including Edwin van der Sar, Nemanja Vidic, obviously Ryan Giggs. That was the huge one that I had to miss out because I can't leave out Best and Ronaldo. But that was a huge one. That was so hard for me to do. And it always is hard comparing cross generations because of how much football's changed. It's a different game to how it was 50 years ago. But I think you have to have some of the old players in just because of what they did for the club in the time of Sir Matt Busby. They deserve to be in the club in this team because a lot of them were great players as well. And they were part of a different special era of Man United footballers, and we always think of the Fergie era as the special era, but the Sir Matt Busby era was also very, very, very special with a lot of special players. I mean, I've also missed out Dennis Law and many other great players from that era. So I'm happy with that team. I'm sad that I missed out Giggs, but I am happy with that team. Schmeichel, Duncan Edwards, Rio Ferdinand, Gary Neville, Patrice Evra, Roy Keane, Paul Scholes, Wayne Rooney, George Best, Cristiano Ronaldo, and Bobby Charlton. So, lastly, I'm going to talk about the Brighton game today. So I'm just going to make a score prediction, and my prediction is 2-1. I think it's going to be a really close game because Brighton just drew to Leicester and they beat Arsenal. So Brighton are in really good form at the moment, and obviously they're in a relegation battle as well. So this game is incredibly important for us, for them, and for us as well. Because if we don't win this game, I think we can kiss goodbye to top 4. Because Chelsea will be too far ahead, obviously with their win against Manchester City. And obviously gifting Liverpool the title. I just want to say something about that first. I'm a huge Man United fan, and obviously it's in my blood to dislike Liverpool. But I have to respect them for what they've done, because they've been absolutely brilliant this season. They completely deserve to win the Premier League. They were the best team this year and I think last year, and they definitely deserved it. And even though there is that rivalry, there's also a lot of respect there, and I really respect what they've done with the club over the past few years. I really like Klopp, and I really like a lot of their players. Congratulations to them, because they've been brilliant all season. They've been brilliant for the past 3 years. So just congratulations to them, even though there is such a rivalry between our two clubs. Still, it's a great achievement for them. Anyway, I think the score is going to be 2-1, and I think Pogba and Rashford will score for us, and Maupay will score for them. And that's my prediction for the Brighton game. I think it'll be a good game. I think United will take a 2-0 lead, and I think they'll get one back, and I think it'll be very edgy at the end. But I think we'll pull through it, and I think we have to pull through it, because if we don't, like I said, I don't think we're going to get the Champions League spot, and then we'll be reliant on winning the Europa League. But anyway, thanks for watching today. If you did enjoy the content, please hit a like, and do remember to subscribe to the channel, and also can you turn on the notification thingy so you can hear, it will tell you when I release my next video, which will be Friday. I am releasing a huge FIFA video, which will have lots of challenges, lots of discards. Don't you worry, there will be discards this time, 100%, because I'm making the challenges seriously hard. One of them being making a 194 foot draft, and if you don't know how hard a 194 foot draft is, you will do when you see me fail miserably at it in my Friday post. I will post on Friday. Make sure you do press that notification button so you will know when I'm posting my videos. I am really happy with the support I've been getting over the first few days of my new YouTube channel. It's all very new to me, and I'm very thankful to all the people in the comments giving me support. Can you please in the comments below give me some more ideas that you want to see? Tell me what you enjoy. Tell me what you want me to do better. Be critical if you want, but just tell me what you want me to do in my future videos. I hope you did enjoy. Please do remember to hit a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much.